What's up, BMW fans? Today I'm going to walk you through replacing the AC compressor on your E90 BMW. So behind me is my 2008 328i. This is my E90 project car, and the AC didn't work when I picked this thing up. So I knew right away something was up. I pulled vacuum on the system and I verified that everything was sealed up. So I went ahead and just replaced the compressor, start there, give it a new charge and see if that fixed it. It did. The reason why I'm kind of talking you through in this video and not just showing you everything as I worked is actually, as I was doing it, my phone ended up dying. I didn't have battery, and I just wanted to get the job done. So I apologize for not having the full process here, but I figured I can at least talk you through a bit of it and help you do it if you need to replace your AC compressor. So here's the old one that I pulled out, and the real pain of this job is this bottom bolt right down here. So you can get to the top one, okay. You can get to the back one, okay. But this bottom bolt, actually, it's like maybe a 1/4 inch away from the thermostat, and that sits mounted to the frame right underneath it. So unfortunately, just to replace the AC compressor, you've got to drain the coolant, you've got to pull out the coolant reservoir, you've got to move that thermostat, and I even moved some of the other lines around it just so I could get room to get to that bottom bolt. So once you get the bottom bolt out, it's actually not that bad because you've already removed so much other stuff that you have room to pull this out. So let me show you what all I had to replace and kind of where some of that stuff is as you go in there to do this job. But at the end of the day, it's replacing a compressor. You'll have to have a manifold gauge set or some other means to take it to a shop to get it recharged. So let me show you what I was doing, and then I'll show you some tidbits as I was working, kind of where the pain points are. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you've got to do to replace that AC compressor is get a lot of stuff out of the way. So I started by taking off this. There's a couple Torx screws here. The airbox comes out with a couple 10mm bolts there, and then a hose clamp where it connects to the intake boot. So that all comes out pretty easily. That opens up a lot of room right here. Now underneath that is the fan shroud that you will also have to remove. The fan shroud has one Torx screw up top, and then the real tricky thing is there's another bolt that holds in the transmission cooler underneath, like at the very bottom of that fan shroud. So I'm not sure if I can see it from here very well, but if you look right there where the end of the flashlight is, that's the cooler, and it's mounted to that shroud. You've got to get underneath the car and pull off the undershield to get to that bolt. Once you have that bolt free, this guy will come free from the fan shroud, and you can take the fan shroud out. It's just got a couple of clips. You can see one at the tip of the flashlight right there, and it just slides out. Once you have that out, then you've got to remove the coolant reservoir. Two 10mm bolts, that comes off. There are quick connects on a lot of this stuff. Now, I ended up draining the radiator from the radiator plug. Not all the coolant comes out when you do that, so you have to disconnect it down here also. And then if we look, there is a coolant line right where my finger is pointing, right there. It's a hard line that runs across the frame. You've got to pull two screws out and remove that just to push it this direction and kind of get it out of the way. With that stuff out of the way, unfortunately, you can't even really see the thermostat, but it is underneath the AC compressor. It is right where you need to be to get to that bolt, the bottom bolt of the compressor. So there are two screws on it that hold it to the frame. They're 10mm bolts, I should say. Take those off and then do what you need to do to move that thermostat this direction. Once you do all that stuff and get that out, you can get the AC compressor out. It will come out toward the front, and because this fan shroud is not in the way, it'll come out and up right there, no big deal. And then you can replace it like any other AC compressor. I just want to show here what all is involved in pulling the AC compressor out. Unfortunately, the thermostat sits below the compressor, and to get to that bottom bolt, you have to at least move the thermostat forward. You don't have to completely remove it, but I had to disconnect the coolant line. There's a U-shaped coolant line on the back of the thermostat. There are some hose clamps to pull that off. And then I had to drain all the coolant and disconnect at the radiator here. So you can see the thermostat right there. That usually sits right about here. So there's two 10mm bolts on the bottom. Undo those, undo some of the coolant lines connected to it, and then you can push it forward. And I also disconnected, see right there, that's a hard line that runs across the front of the engine. There's two Torx on that hold it to the subframe. Disconnect those, and then you can move that hard line forward with the thermostat, get it out of your way so you can get to that bottom bolt. Unfortunately, all that work just to get to the bottom bolt of the compressor. So with that out of the way, we can get to the compressor bolts and get the compressor out. Just want to show there are two, these are number 6 Allen bolts that hold the hard lines into the compressor. And fortunately, one end of the hard line over there is a soft line, so we should be able to flex that out of the way. So we just got the compressor back in place and the line's connected, pulling vacuum on it right now. Everything looks good. The coolant lines are loosely back in place. I still have to put the reservoir back in. You can see that's the hardest part of all of this, really, is just getting that stuff out of the way to get to the bottom bolt on that AC compressor. All right, I just got finished up with everything. The AC is filled again, R134A. I set the cans in hot water. I actually was able to get all the refrigerant in without starting the engine. So apologies for not filming that part of it, but it was actually pretty easy on this car. So it took about 2 cans. It's 590 grams, plus or minus 10 grams that go in. I was able to just fill it at the high side and the low side with the engine off, and took all the refrigerant. Everything is nice and cold. I got 37 degrees Fahrenheit. If you have any questions about the AC compressor install, just post them up in the comments section, guys. Always happy to help. Thanks for watching.